So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital
The Screen
revolution.
Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, or SAG-AFTRA, is going on strike, and we're going to talk about it today. Now, SAG-AFTRA is kind of what you imagine. There's about 116,000 active actors in the union, and they have about 60,000 that are inactive or withdrawn or suspended at this time. It represents screen actors, journalists, radio personalities, voice actors, fashion models, etc. And it's actually just a merger of some very old organizations. It merged in 2012 after the Screen Actors Guild, which is from 1933, and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, which was in 1937. So those two were formed at that time, and then again merged together in March 30 of 2012. It is, of course, an AFL-CIO union, which is the largest federation of unions. If this tells you anything about SAG-AFTRA, it's that Fran Drescher is the president of SAG-AFTRA. She won it 2 years ago, roughly, and beat Matt Modine. So I'm not sure. I guess that's probably a good bargaining chip if you have Fran Drescher across the table from you. I'm sure businesses will just be absolutely willing to settle for any contract just so that they don't have to hear her voice. Don't come after me in the comments. There's probably a good chance that she doesn't use the voice she used in that awful show, but I have no idea. I've not heard from her since then. There are actually two factions within SAG-AFTRA. There's the United for Strength faction, which is Fran Drescher's. That's how she won. And then there's a second one called Membership First, which criticized the United for Strength one for being too quick and soft when it comes to negotiation with students and studios. And as a result, is probably the more radical wing of SAG-AFTRA. They've been on strike before on behalf of video game developers. This was back in October of 2016. It took a strike against Activision, EA, Insomniac, etc. And it was a really long strike. It lasted nearly a year, so it's fairly significant. In June of this year, the Screen Actors Guild said that they were going to strike if the negotiating committee failed to reach a new agreement on a contract. And a whole lot of famous people signed up on this, which included Jennifer Lawrence, Rami Malek, Amy Schumer. And what they're really looking after in this new contract is key things surrounding compensation. Specifically, they're concerned about the use of AI and computer generated voices. They're concerned about streaming residuals, which as streaming has grown, the contracts have been falling behind. And frankly, this is sort of representative of union contracts as a whole. As someone who's experienced them previously, you get locked in time to a specific contract, and further payment methods, further payment structures are continued, and it's not innovative. They refuse to be innovative with how they pay because these contracts are old. Oftentimes they're 3 years old, 5 years old, and the world can change significantly. One problem that we always had is that our union contracts in the past didn't account for inflation. And so, we were underpaying the market because our union contract had locked us into a place that we had no other choice but to continue with. So they've gone on strike against the alliance of, they've, they've gone on strike, and as a result, a lot of films are affected. And all of them sound awful, but to list a few that are affected: Avatar 3, Avatar 4, Gladiator 2, Mortal Kombat 2, a fourth Bad Boys film. Didn't know they were coming out with another one. A sequel to Let There Be Carnage. So it seems like in terms of films, most things are just sequels that are being stopped. Fairly famous people are striking, and that's kind of interesting. That's probably why I'm covering it at all. So for example, Jason Sudeikis is striking at the Rockefeller Center. Allison Janney and Joey King at Warner Brothers. Mandy Moore, which is listed as an actress, is striking at the Disney offices. This strike, of course, is against the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. They sort of work as a trade association, similar to, as you saw with the International Longshoremen on the West Coast strike. So with respect to the ports, the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers act sort of as a trade association in the same vein, although not the same at all. They represent folks like the Paramount Pictures, Sony Pictures, Universal, Walt Disney, ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, Netflix. So literally everyone. It's a very significant trade association that's very powerful and quite rich. It's almost 100 years old. It was founded in 1924. Bob Iger, from the CEO of Walt Disney, is saying that the actor demands aren't realistic at all and that they're adding to the set of challenges that this business is already facing. And I can imagine it. I think that as a person who doesn't particularly take in Hollywood that much, I'm not sure that this is going to go well for them. The Screen Actors Guild is fairly powerful. What's kind of interesting that many people don't know is that Ronald Reagan was actually the president of the Screen Actors Guild in the 60s, which is really, I mean, again, very interesting. Most people don't know that. Most people know he was an actor, but not that he was the head of a union. It was pretty successful in the 60s and 70s, and of course there was some strong commercial strikes of the 2000s. In many ways, the Screen Actors Guild and AFTRA have power. They are a pretty strong union. I just think that, frankly, they don't have as much power as they think they do. With the pandemic and with streaming and YouTube quickly gaining ground and frankly, motion pictures being somewhat of a thing of the past, in my opinion, I don't see it being that powerful. We could be wrong. It could be a long-lived strike or a very impactful strike. I think that remains to be seen, but I'm really interested in where this leads. And again, I think it's kind of interesting to see the actors, the fairly famous people, actually be engaged and actually striking and protesting in this manner. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Don't come at me for my comments on Fran Drescher. And like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.